All right, thank you for that. Welcome to this August 25th, 2023 Metro Plan Orlando Technical Advisory Committee meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. Again, I'm Bill Wharton, your chairman. And as a reminder, since this meeting and our future meetings will be in person, it is important for all TAC members to attend our meetings in person in order for us to have a quorum. There are two opportunities for public comment during the meeting. The first is just before the action items. And again, at the end of the meeting, members of the public attending in person who want to speak, you need to fill out a comment card and give it to Rachel, who's sitting to your left, to your right, with the big monitors in front of her. Those attending virtually who want to speak will use the raise hands feature on the Zoom screen. Or if attending by phone, you can hit *9 to raise your hand and request to be recognized. We also accept comments by email before the meetings. I'd also like to take a moment and thank Josh DeVree for standing in for me for June and July while I was out, as also at the board meeting in June. If anybody wants to know anything about knee replacement, I'm happy to talk to you about that. And I'll turn it over to Slade for that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome again to everyone to this TAC meeting. I have a couple of announcements this morning. First off, we have Eric Hill. Is Eric in the room? An announcement from him, but do not see him, so I'll move him to the end of the announcement. Next up, I believe we have a slide to share with you guys. We have a couple of big changes to share at MetroPlan. First off, we've now become metroplanorlando.gov. The .gov domain shift is made for a couple of reasons. .gov is a bit safer, has a couple more safety measures in place, as well as kind of adds a bit of legitimacy to us as a governmental organization. All of the web pages and web domains or web documents are still up on the website. It got a bit of a redesign, as you can see, to kind of round out our long-running branding change. Also, make you all aware, our email addresses have changed. They're now first name dot last name at metroplanorlando.gov. If you've used the old address, it will still get through to us during the transition, but wanted to put that on everyone's radars. We also have a survey on the website. If you go on and click around, let us know what you think. Be honest. We're open to criticism. We're open to feedback. And yeah, that is our new website update. And next up, I see Eric in the room. I'll let him tell you a bit about an event coming up with our TISMO group.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the TAC. Many of you are aware that we are completing our TISMO master plan. And one of the things that we as engineers and planners tend to do is we operate inside of a bubble sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. And so we kind of miss that community or citizen input. And so what we want to do is take advantage of our community advisory committee. They typically meet on a regular cycle, but they're not meeting next month. So we want to take that time on September the 27th to have a field trip of sorts. And we're going to be asking them to join us at the regional TMC, FDOT's TMC. So number one, they can get an opportunity to see what goes on behind the scenes in terms of the use of technology. But we also want to have a more interaction with them on the master plan and get their perspective, because at that point, we want to be able to share some of the results of the work with them. So that's pretty much it. It's the 27th of September, 9:30 at the RTMC. Anyone can attend. You're all invited. And that is pretty much what I would like to share with you. So, Mr. Chairman, if there are any questions or comments, I'm open to them.
Thanks, Eric. Seeing no questions, I'll move forward with our next announcements.
Thank you.
All right. Continuing with changes around the office, we have 2 new members of staff. Adriana Rodriguez, please stand up, has joined us as a senior transportation engineer. Adriana's background includes 10 years of experience in a wide variety of transportation projects, including transit planning, pedestrian bicycle safety, traffic analysis, and corridor planning. She's also served as a committee member for over 7 years on TRB's standing committees on public transportation planning and development and transportation planning analysis and application. So welcome, Adriana. And some of you may recognize our second new member of staff. We're happy to welcome back returning staff member Laura Bauk. And over there in the corner. Some of you may remember Laura from her previous tenure here at Metroplan Orlando. She did a brief stint over at the city of Tampa, and we're glad she decided to come back home to Metroplan. She'll be returning to her role as senior transportation engineer and project manager for the TISMO team with Eric Hill. Laura will be taking over as lead for the traffic signal timing program, assisting with several ongoing upcoming efforts, including the TISMO master plan, the electric vehicle readiness plan, and the Vision Zero local action plans. And next up, I'd like to tell you about FDOT Mobility Week, which is going to be October 27th through November 4th this year. Mobility Week is an annual cooperative event between FDOT and local municipal partners to promote awareness of safe multimodal transportation choices. Counties, cities, and transportation agencies host events that offer special promotions to encourage Floridians around the state to try new transportation options. This is a good time for any of you to highlight transportation achievements in your municipality, roll out new initiatives, promote new policies. If you'd like to learn more about Mobility Week, you can go to the URL right there on the screen. And coincidentally, it begins the same day as our next TAC meeting, October 27th. So I'm sure we'll have another little blurb about that next meeting. Now I'll turn over to Mike, and I promise that's the end of my announcements.
Thank you, Slade, and good morning, everyone. Our safety moment for this month is on impaired driving. This is NHTSA's Drive Sober or Get Pulled Over campaign period. So I'm focusing on the Safer People section again. A little bit of data as we have in some prior safety moments, looking at that pre and post-COVID trend. And again, with, we've had overall crash reduction, even with impaired driving. When we look at fatal and serious crashes, there's been a reduction. But for some reason, when we get to the most serious with the fatal only impaired driving, we have seen an increase over the past 5 years. So it'd be interesting to look at how we compare to our peers around the state as far as the major metro areas. So this is looking at the percentage of fatal and serious crashes that involve impaired driving. And we're about in the middle of the pack there. You see 7.4%. Miami-Dade doing the best in the state at 5.3. And then Jacksonville up there at the top at 17, over 17%. Looking also at the trend across the state, once again, we're kind of in the middle of the pack. And then Miami-Dade leading again with a 20% reduction in impaired driving as a proportion of overall crashes. And then for some reason, the Panhandle getting significantly worse in that respect. Not sure as to why the discrepancies. If anyone has any insights, be interested into here. And then lastly, our actual moment of thought for actionable actions we want people to take, or in this case not take. and that has to do with buzz driving.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Yeah, you know, we tend to think about the more egregious levels of intoxication. But if you think back to my first safety moment about speed and how small differences can make a big impact, imagine an additional half second or second of reaction time when you're going at 45 miles an hour and what that means from a crash standpoint. So that's my safety moment for this month, and I'd be happy to take any questions. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mike. Now turn it over to Rachel for roll call.
Thank you. If you can please remember to turn your microphones on and then off once you've called present. Ebersole for Bates.
Here.
Bostwick.
Here.
Brock.
Here.
Carson. Cash.
Here.
Castellero.
Present.
Castro.
Here.
Chester.
Here.
Cornelison.
Here.
Coulomb.
Present.
DeVries.
Here.
Doig.
Good morning. Here.
Eade.
Present.
Elliott Moore.
Present.
Creel. Gold. Hammer. Rhodes for Hardwick.
Here.
Hartley.
Here.
Dredge. Kamal. Kane.
Present.
Krug. Lim.
Here.
Martello. Moskovitz.
Here.
O'Keefe.
Here.
Pullum. Richmond. Rigby. Sanders.
Here.
Gurmalus for Senerans.
Here.
Smith.
Present.
Stirk.
Here.
Story.
Here.
Ramos for Sudemeyer.
Here.
Wharton.
Here.
Williams. Yeargain.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes the roll call, and we do have a quorum.
All right, from there we'll move on to our common presentations. So the first one we have is the Regional Vision Zero Action Plan, presented by Mike.
Good morning again. So just briefly giving you an update on our Vision Zero action plan. We've just kicked this project off last month with the approval from Federal Highway. And last week held our first regional task force meeting. And so in this presentation, I'll go over a little bit of what we discussed at the task force meeting, a simple overview of the Vision Zero concept, and overview of some of the key tasks of this planning effort, and a little bit on the project schedule. During that first meeting, we looked at some of the higher level crash trends, looking from the federal level all the way on down to local, and see how we compare with our with the state and nation. Talked extensively about what the Vision Zero concept is, and the safe system approach that underlies that, and how we move forward with this new approach towards safety. Spend some time talking about the key tasks that are a function of this plan, what to expect from the plan as far as outputs, and then of course the project schedule. And then we had some discussion from task force members as to what they would like to see from the plan, perhaps along the lines of, what sort of data interests them, and and how to move forward. So what is Vision Zero? It's really a reframing of the safety problem. And that we need to start looking at loss of life as not being an acceptable price to pay for mobility, because that's really what we've been doing for all these years. We need to eliminate traffic deaths and severe injuries on our transportation system. And in order to do that, we have to be proactive and preventative. And we not just look at where we have had crashes, but be able to predict where we think crashes are likely to occur. So the approach with Vision Zero is, again, reframing traffic deaths that as preventable. The vast majority of them are. That human failing is to be expected. We are all imperfect and we all make mistakes, and regardless of what mode we are traveling in. To focus on fatal and severe crashes rather than trying to eliminate all crashes. If we can eliminate those more severe crashes, it might be worthwhile to have an increase in, say, property damage only crashes as a trade-off. Developing a safe system that where all components are leading toward safety rather than relying just on the individuals to perform in an ideal manner. And of course, data has to drive this decision-making. We can't just feel or imagine what we think will work, but really look at the data and use that to determine what the most effective countermeasures will be. And then lastly, social equity is a component of this. What we find is that people of lesser means have a disproportionate impact, receive a disproportionate impact when it comes to traffic safety. The elements of a Vision Zero plan, whether it's at the regional level or all the way down to the community level, is setting clear goals of eliminating fatalities and severe injuries. What kind of reduction by what time? Having elected officials that are publicly committed to this process, having actionable strategies so that we prioritize roadway design, focus on speed management, things that we know that we can implement. Ensuring that we have all the key departments at work, obviously, law enforcement, of course, transportation planners and engineers such as yourselves, but public health has to also be at the table. They're the ones who work the tail end of this problem, and they can be a great partner from a data standpoint. And data, once again, driving the decision-making. The key tasks for this project, we are right now in this summer phase of kicking it off, doing the detailed crash analysis, developing a high injury network. We've developed materials to share with the partners, with the counties and cities, not only from a data standpoint, but also graphic standards, so that we can all put together publications that are coherent, consistent throughout the region. As we move into the fall, be looking at the engineering countermeasures and non-engineering behavioral countermeasures, looking at the policies at all levels from MPO on down to the cities, and at every type of policy that might touch safety in some way and where the revisions might need to be. As we move into the winter and spring, we'll be identifying the priority projects, which corridors, which intersections, and which strategies we need to be paying attention to, and with what countermeasures. And then finally, by the spring, early summer of next year, we expect to have all of these plans completed and adopted. And what that does, it enables us to everyone to be eligible for the next step, which is the the infrastructure funding for actually building projects. Next steps in the more near immediate term, we have our next task force meeting on September 19th at 3 p.m. Of course, it's open to everyone. It is a virtual meeting, and you can get the information from that, of course, on our calendar. We are in the process of working with all the local governments. Some of them have already kicked off. Others we're finishing up the scope, and within the next few weeks, we will have all of our local government partners on board and moving forward with their own individual Vision Zero plans. By the middle of next month, we should have the hub site, which is the big data site, which will have all the crash data and associated data available for all the partners and for the public, so you can see what the scope of the safety problem, and also slice and dice it by jurisdiction, by crash type, by mode, et cetera. So people can get a much better understanding of the crash problems in our area. And we are working on the crash analysis side of things, tying crashes to behavior and environment and demographics. And then policy benchmarking, looking at the existing policies that are out there with some guidance on how all of our partners can modify those to help fulfill the Vision Zero planning. So that concludes my presentation this morning. Be happy to take any questions.
Good morning. So with the crash analysis, is that when you're looking at the high injury networks and those types of things, is it a cumulative of, the past 4 or 5 years type of thing? Or is it so, or do we have the ability to look at certain time periods? And I guess the reason I'm asking is, if there was, so the city of Orlando, we've started to implement some changes. So to be able to understand if some of our implementation has had an effect or not, because while a certain intersection may have a 5-year history of a lot of crashes, maybe the last 2 years is much lower. And those are the types of things that I think it would be interesting to understand.
Yes. Yeah, so the 5 years is the starting point. The past 5 years up through 2022. Perhaps for some smaller jurisdictions where there's not as many crashes, we can go back another 5 years. That's available in Signal 4. And then we are also looking at going forward, tracking all of this so that we can obviously measure our efforts. But yes, I mean, obviously all the crash data is very rich, and so it has all of the the date ranges. So however you want to slice and dice the data, it's available. Yeah, it will be much more data than you need or want. Sure.
Our second presentation is on the active transportation plan. Catherine Tellez, welcome.
Right. Good morning, everyone. So it's been almost a year since we were here last kicking off the 2050 Active Transportation Plan. And so as a refresher, the purpose of the Active Transportation Plan is really to create a list of proposed projects that improve bicycling and pedestrian infrastructure in the region, support and promote complementary modes of travel, and then tying into Vision Zero, the presentation that we just saw, really improving those transportation safety outcomes for the most vulnerable users on our roadway. So a few things we'll be going over today. We'll just do some project updates. We've been doing a lot of work in the last year or so really want to share our progress there. And then we'll introduce the open house workshop format, what you can expect, and then talk a little bit about next steps, including what feedback we'd love to see from you all over the next couple of weeks. So back in October 2022, we had our first workshop with you all, and you provided some valuable feedback on the existing and planned networks that we already had in the region. Since then, we added a host of analysis to that. So looking at safety, vehicle travel speeds, comfort, accessibility, and then layering on top of all of that demographics. We also came up with some consistent naming conventions for facility types in the region. And based on the feedback from this group steering committee, we came up with some definitions for the purpose of this study. And you'll see those on figures 1 through 4 of your handout. So that way we're all just working from the same vocabulary when we're talking about different facility types. Our next major effort was really measuring that level of traffic stress for people bicycling. So how stressful or how comfortable is a facility for somebody who is bicycling. And inputs to this analysis included what type of bicycle facility it is. And if it's how far away it might be from vehicle traffic. So is it a bike lane? And then how much vehicle traffic is there? What's the speed of that traffic? And there's really four main criteria or comfort ratings. So a level of traffic stress 1 or 2, those are pretty comfortable. You're probably going to want to feel comfortable taking your kids out on those facilities. And then you have your level of traffic stress 3 or 4. So those are much more stressful bicycling facilities. And that might be a bike lane on a 6-lane roadway where a facility is provided. It just might not be all that comfortable. And just want to note that we shouldn't equate comfort with demand, because we often find that we have the highest levels of use on those LTS 3 and 4 facilities. And so we just want to make sure that we're not sort of equating, oh, if we convert it to a 1, everybody will use it, or if it's a 4, nobody will use it. But really the goal is to identify those facilities that aren't that comfortable and see if there's some improvements there. Then we also looked at pedestrian level of comfort. So it's pretty similar to the level of traffic stress for people bicycling, some similar inputs, looking at the different types of pedestrian facilities, and then looking at the separation of the pedestrian facility from the vehicular travelway. So is there a landscape buffer? How wide is that buffer? Is there on-street parking? And we also added a pedestrian level of comfort 5 category. And this is for roadways where there is not a sidewalk facility provided at all. So we wanted to make that distinction in the analysis. We then wanted to see how accessible different destinations were in the region via walking and bicycling modes. So from feedback from the steering committee, we identified 5 key destinations. So these are public schools, transit facilities, parks, jobs, and shopping opportunities, including grocery stores. And then we looked at walking buffers and bicycling buffers in terms of how far you could walk or bike in about 5 minutes, then in about 6 to 15 minutes, and then that 16 to 30 minute walk or bike ride. And you'll see the results of those initial analyses on figures 9 and 10. And then we also wanted to understand, well, that's great, things are accessible, but how comfortable is that route that people might need to travel on? So then we layered on top of the accessibility analysis, the level of traffic stress and pedestrian level of comfort. And with that, we were able to identify locations in the region where maybe you had a lot of destinations that were highly accessible, but maybe the routes to get there aren't all that comfortable. So this helps us identify some potential opportunities for projects. We also layered on top of that the demographics, because we wanted to understand the characteristics of people who had high levels of access, as well as low levels of access via low stress facilities. And overall, we found that people who live in disadvantaged communities have lower levels of access to various destinations via those low stress networks. So as we're incorporating new planned facilities, we're able to kind of test those to see who it benefits and include that as part of our prioritization process as well. All right, so we identified a host of new potential projects layering on top the existing active transportation system and what everybody already has sort of on the books, if you will. And with that, we looked at sort of 4 main categories of projects. So new trail segments. And for that, we primarily looked at utility corridors. And then utility corridors by ownership. We wanted to understand who owned those corridors, how feasible it might be to put in a new trail. So you'll see some of those opportunities. We then also looked at potential intersection crossing improvements. So with that, we looked for places where we had a side path or a trail crossing a 6-lane facility, to see if there's any enhancements that could be contemplated there. And then we also looked at intersections that had a high level of bicycle and pedestrian fatal and severe injury crashes. Wanted to take a look to see what we could do to improve safety. We then also looked at potential corridor improvements. And again, a lot of the inputs to that were where we have some safety challenges, where we have speeding issues, or where we might have an on-street bike lane, adjacent to 4 or 6 lanes of high-speed travel, where there could be an opportunity to modify that bike lane or perhaps add a side path. And then we looked as well as potential locations to add a bicycle or pedestrian bridge or tunnel. So overall, we sort of flagged about 400 potential projects. Some of them were in multiple categories, so that helped us winnow down the list a little bit. And then we looked at projects that are in the TIP and STIP and other planning documents, and noted that some of the corridor and intersection improvements were already planned as parts of other safety or complete street projects. So we reviewed those, and for some of them came up with some ideas to incorporate to improve it slightly for active transportation modes. And then we ended up with slightly over 100 new potential projects, which we'll all get to weigh in on today. In addition to all of the physical improvements, we've also been working on some policy recommendations. So looking at some policy recommendations related to accessibility, incorporating a user count program. We often say if you don't count it, it doesn't matter. So we want to make sure that we're counting bicycles and pedestrians throughout the region, understand who's using what facilities. And that can be great data to help us prioritize future improvements for grant applications for a whole host of things. And then also looking at micro mobility policies, making sure that we have some consistent guidance across the region related to e-bikes and e-scooters and where they're appropriate and how to best accommodate them, especially as some of the e-bikes can be pretty heavy and get up to pretty fast speeds. So again, going back to Vision Zero and making sure that we're really looking at that from the micro mobility portion as well. And then just some guidance on and policies related to the bicycle facility selection. So we've been working on all of those in the last year or so. So now to the fun stuff. So as soon as the meeting's over, you'll all get an opportunity to look at the boards. So we have a number of pieces of information for you. So on the boards, you'll find on street facilities, both existing and planned. So this is what you all already have sort of on the books. And then existing and planned off-street facilities. There's a lot, so that's why we separated them so you can kind of see a little bit more clearly. And then we have a board that shows the critical sidewalk gap project locations. And then the last board is really showing those draft project additions that we developed. And then if you have the handouts in front of you, those have the facility types, the level of traffic stress results and methodology, the pedestrian level of comfort, and then some of the accessibility results. And then we also have an interactive map, knowing that you might all want to go back to your office and talk to some folks and get some additional detail. So with that, we have some analysis results that are shown as well, the existing and planned facilities, the draft ATP projects, and then that links to a data dashboard that shows a whole host of other information as well that you might all be interested in. So MetroPlan Orlando staff and the consultant team working on this will be in the various rooms. So we have in the Harold Barley Conference Room, Orange County, and then in the Bald Cypress Conference Room, Seminole County, and then in the Atrium, Osceola County, as well as the interactive map. We have that set up. So if anybody has any questions related to that or wants to leave some feedback that way. In each room as well, we also have some QR codes where you can scan to get to the map to provide feedback. And we'll make sure you all have a link to that after this as well, so you don't have to worry about saving it. And then we want your feedback related to, whether or not we have the right planned facilities. So I was talking to Mr. Smith from Longwood earlier, and he's like, oh, you know what? We're just wrapping up a mobility plan and an active transportation plan. I think we have some new things that we want to show on the map. So asked him to send us that in the next week or so we can incorporate that. And then for the new ideas, really just noting, is that feasible, because you know a lot more about your communities than we do. And maybe it's something you all already talked about, and from a political standpoint, not feasible. We'd like to know that. And then there's a lot of things and we may have missed something. So to the extent there's a new plan project you'd like us to include on the map, please note that as well. And there's pens and sticky notes and the map. So lots of different ways to provide feedback. So just sort of as we wrap up here, we've been working on these sort of draft system plans over, we'll give you about 2 weeks to look into the maps, provide your feedback. We're going to then consolidate all that, update the maps, and then go out to the public with those updated maps as we start to draft the plan. And here is our engagement schedule. The goal of having a draft final plan late this year and wrapping things up in January. So happy to answer any initial questions, and we'll all be part of the workshop. So if anything comes up, you'll have plenty of opportunities to ask questions.
I have a question. How long is the input window?
We'll give you about 2 weeks.
Good. Perfect. Thanks. Can we get a copy of that?
Yes.
Five-year update of our long-range transportation plan. And there are a lot of trail projects and, filling in gaps, those type of things. So we'll be giving you a call too.
Okay. It's always a moving target.
Anybody else? Yes, go ahead.
Catherine, I was looking at the board with you before the meeting, and that last board, the proposed improvements, I'm assuming are those proposed on top of what are already shown on the facilities?
Correct. Yeah. So that would be layering on top what is already on the book. So that's why those boards, though, they don't have that many projects on it because there's already so many things in Osceola County on the books.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Catherine. Okay, next we'll move into our first public comments, and these are beyond our action items. We ask you to provide your name and address for the record, and please hold your comments to 2 minutes or less. And again, if any members of the public wish to comment or joining us virtually, please use the raise hand function and you will be recognized, or dial *9 on your phone keypad. Do we have anyone joining us virtually who would like to make a comment?
Mr. Chair, we don't have anyone on the virtual side.
Thank you, Lisa. Rachel, do we have anyone in person like to make a comment?
I have not received any comments from the room, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, with that, not doing anything there, we'll move on to our action items. Our first is the approval of our June 30th, 2023 TAC meeting minutes. Those are found in your agenda item. Do I have a motion on the item?
I'm Shad Smith. I move to approve.
And a second?
Second, Castro.
I'm sorry, who got that? Okay. Any comments? All right. This is a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Our next is the FDOT amendment to the FY 2024 through the 28 TIP. And Jason Sorrento will present that for us.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Jason Sartorio. This morning I have one tip amendment for you. Additional information regarding this amendment is located in tab 2 of your agendas. Today's amendment is for the 10th Street Complete Street Project, Phase 1. This is a new project which is being funded through a federal discretionary grant awarded to the city of St. Cloud. As I mentioned earlier, you have some additional information regarding this amendment located in tab 2 of your agendas. With that being said, unless there are any questions, we're asking for your recommendation of approval of the amendment. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, I have a motion back on this.
Motion to approve, Shad Smith.
Thank you. In a second
Second.
for comments. Again, voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
This includes projects that have funds that were originally programmed in last year's TIP for fiscal year 2023. These funds were not committed by the end of the fiscal year on June 30th, so they automatically roll forward to fiscal year 2024 in FDOT's new adopted 5-year work program, which came out in July. What we need to do on our end is amend the TIP to include these project funds so that we can remain consistent with the work program. This does not affect the cost or schedule of these projects. And as many of you know, this is a routine procedure that we go through at about this time every year. Additional information regarding the roll forward amendment is located in tab 3 of your agenda packets. With that being said, unless there are any questions, we're asking for your recommendation of approval of the amendment. Thank you.
Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve, Shad Smith.
Second.
O'Keefe.
Favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any There are no TAC-only presentations today. There's general information in tab 4 of your agenda. Upcoming meetings we have of interest. There will be no TAC meeting next month, so don't show up here. The next TAC meeting will be on October 27th. We do have the Metro Plan board meeting on September 13th. Additionally, there's the American Public Transportation Association Conference being held in the Orange County Convention Center, October 9th through 11th. And there's a full list of upcoming meetings and agenda packets as well. At this time, we're winding down. Do we have any comments from the board committee members? And yes, Mary?
I'd just like to make an announcement that this is my last TAC meeting. Doug Robinson, who is in the audience, will be taking my place. As many of you know, I have been in Central Florida for over 15 years. I've had many different positions, but one thing that has remained constant throughout has been TAC. I've been a member throughout my career. I am leaving Central Florida, so I will no longer, this is really my last TAC meeting. I will no longer be a part of Metro Plan Orlando. And I just want to thank everybody in this room. You guys do an amazing job. And thank you to Gary. I'm sure he's listening. Thank you for your leadership. And, you know, just thanks for all of your work. Thank you.
And from Seminole County, I think we need a voice vote to let you do that. I don't know. We will miss you for sure. And you've touched a lot of different agencies and people around here. So best of luck in your new adventure. Just stay in touch.
I have to come back for the pins in the calendar, so I will be back.
Very good. Thank you. All right, now we're on to our second public comments for the meeting. And do we have any virtually comments coming in? Lisa?
Mr. Chair, we do not have any hands raised on the virtual side.
Thank you very much. Rachel, do we have any in person who'd like to comment?
Mr. Chairman, no comments from the room.
Thank you very much. And with that,
Real quick.
oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Go
Bill. We've not received any written in comments from the
Thank you.
public. But also I wanted to add as a closing comment, just a reminder to all our TAC members that if you are planning on sending an alternate, please give us a heads up about 24 hours or so in advance of the meeting. Just really helps with logistics on our end, making sure we have a quorum. It's funny saying that because we have so many people in the room today. It feels a little moot today, but just wanted to shoot out that reminder again. And also thank you again to Mary for your service. I appreciate it.
And again, ask you to take a few moments of your time and go through the active transportation workshop and provide your thoughts and comments and all the information you have stuffed in our heads to help them out in that area. And with that, we'll adjourn the meeting at 10:45. Thank you.
Okay.
You get to sign. You get the- okay, very good.
already.
Thank you.
Hmm? I may.